So the last few weeks we've been starting our journey through the Arabic hidden words, and one theme that we've noticed emerging, but of course, as we know, the hidden words don't have an intrinsic theme, so the arrangement has been done by a scribe, but during the time of Baha'u'llah, so we can presume that the ordering in some way had the sanction of Baha'u'llah. And so we are seeing some groupings of themes here. And one of the themes that emerges fairly early on is the theme of love. And we were looking at some quotations from the Baha'i writings on love, adjacent to these topics of love that emerge in the hidden words. And one useful way of thinking about love as a spiritual attribute is that it's something that has multiple directions. You can think about love of God for God's own essence, which in some way brings creation into being. We can think about God's love for creation. You can think about the love of creation or humanity for God, and you can think about the love of people for each other. And then you can kind of break it out and see different quotations on these different movements of love as they're found in the Baha'i writings. But you also see, I think, that there's overlap between these, that you can't cleanly break out the categories. That, for example, the topic of our love for God is inseparable from the topic of our love for that divine spark within, which Baha'u'llah in the word says, turn thy sight within thyself, that thou mayest find me standing within thee. So there's if you try to draw it out as Venn diagrams, there's a lot of overlap between our love for God, God's love for God, our love, for the essence of God within us. Likewise, our love for each other, there's also a strong sort of Venn diagram between our love for each other and our love for God, as we'll see in these quotations that we have for this evening. So I was thinking what we could do is start by reading these two sets of quotations. The first set is on our love for God, and the second set is on our love for each other. And we'll see right away how they kind of merge into each other. And then we'll jump over to Hidden Words number 15, and then we'll start seeing this, these various movements of love inside the Hidden Words as we keep on keeping on through the Hidden Words. And we'll see also that at the end of Arabic Hidden Word 24, which might be a good stopping point for this evening, it starts in Arabic Hidden Word number 25 on a different theme. It switches from the theme of us and God to the theme of us and others. So in some way, the quotations here anticipate what we're going to be seeing, starting with Hidden Word number 25. But that's getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. So should we start with these quotations on our love for God?
Having created the world and all that liveth and moveth therein, he through the direct operation of his unconstrained and sovereign will chose to confer upon man the unique distinction and capacity to know him and to love him, a capacity that must needs be regarded as the generating impulse and the primary purpose underlying the whole of creation.
Only when the lamp of search of earnest striving, of longing desire, of passionate devotion, of fervent love, of rapture, of ecstasy is kindled within the seeker's heart, and the breeze of his loving kindness is wafted upon his soul, the darkness of error be dispelled, the mist of doubts and misgivings be dissipated, and the lights of knowledge and the certitude envelop his being.
I love thy creation, hence I created thee. Wherefore do thou love me, that I may name thy name and fill my soul with spirit light. Thy paradise is my love, thy heavenly home reunion with me. Enter therein and tarry not. This is that which hath been destined for thee in our kingdom above and above
My love is my stronghold. He that entereth therein is safe and secure. and he that turneth away shall surely stray and perish. If the lovers be among them that abide within the precincts of the abode of the lowestone of hearts, no soul may dwell on this kingly throne, save the countenance of love. I am powerless to describe this station, or to depict it in words. In this station, neither the reign of the intellect is sufficient, nor the rule of self. The dwellers of this abode know not the destination, yet they spur on their chargers. They see not in the beloved but his very self. They find all words of sense to be meaningless, and senseless words to be full of meaning. They cannot distinguish head from foot, or one limb from another.
O living flame of heavenly love, thine heart hath been so fired with the love of God, that from 10,000 leagues afar its warmth and radiance may be felt and seen. The fire lit by mortal hand imparteth light and warmth to but a little space, whereas that sacred flame which the hand of God hath kindled, though burning in the east, will set aflame the west, and give warmth to both the north and the south. Nay, it shall rise from this world to glow with the hottest flame in the realms on high, flooding with light the kingdom of eternal glory.
There is need of a superior power to overcome human prejudices, a power which nothing in the world of mankind can withstand, and which will overshadow the effect of all other forces at work in human conditions. That irresistible power is the love of God. Were it not for the love of God, discord and division would not be transmuted into fellowship. Were it not for the love of God, estrangement would not give way to unity. Were it not for the love of God, the stranger would not become the friend. Indeed, love in the human world is a ray of the love of God and a reflection of the grace of his bounty.
The love of God, and consequently of men, is the essential foundation of every religion, our own included. A greater degree of love will produce a greater unity, because it enables people to bear with each other, to be patient and forgiving. Real love is impossible unless one turn his face toward God and be attracted to his beauty. If a man say, I love God, and hateth his brother, he is a liar. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love.
When you love a member of your family or a compatriot, let it be with the ray of the infinite love. Let it be in God and for God. Wherever you find the attributes of God, love that person, whether he be of your family or of another.
Love the creatures for the sake of God and not for themselves. You will never become angry or impatient if you love them for the sake of God. Humanity is not perfect. There are imperfections in every human being, and you will always become unhappy if you look toward the people themselves. But if you look toward God, you will love them and be kind to them. For the world of God is a world of perfection and complete mercy.
We must love God, and in this state, a general love for all men becomes possible. We cannot love each human being for himself, but our feelings towards humanity should be motivated by our love for the Father, who created all men. They should manifest gratitude and thankfulness to God, and the best way to thank God is to love one another.
The fourth kind of love is the love of man for man. The love which exists between the hearts of believers is promoted by the ideal of the unity of spirits. This love is attained through the knowledge of God, so that men see the divine love reflected in the heart. Each sees the other the beauty of God reflected in the soul, and finding this point of similarity, they are attracted to one another in love. This love will make all men the ways of one sea. This love will make them all the stars of one heaven.
Be as brilliant as the light and as splendid as the fire that blazed in the burning bush. The brightness of the fire of your love will no doubt fuse and unify the contending peoples and kindreds of the earth, whilst the fierceness of the flame of enmity and hatred cannot but result in strife and ruin.
The essence of Baha'u'llah's teaching is all-embracing love. For love includeth every excellence of humankind. It causeth every soul to go forward. It bestoweth on each one for a heritage immortal life. Order your lives in accordance with the first principle of divine teaching, which is love. Service to humanity is service to God. Let the love and light of the kingdom radiate through you until all who look upon you shall be illumined by its reflection.
The great unselfish love for humanity is bounded by none of these imperfect, semi-selfish bonds. This is the one perfect love possible to all mankind and can only be achieved by the power of the Divine Spirit. No worldly power can accomplish the universal love. Love is a fundamental principle of God's purpose for man, and He has commanded us to love each other, even as He loves us.
You must manifest complete love and affection toward all mankind. Do not exalt yourselves above others, but consider all as your equals, recognizing them as the servants of one God. Know that God is compassionate toward all. Therefore, love all from the depths of your hearts. Prefer all religionists before yourselves. Be filled with love for every race, and be kind toward the people of all nationalities. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another.
This love amongst the believers is the magnet, which will, above all else, attract the hearts and bring new souls into the cause. Because obviously the teachings, however wonderful, cannot change the world unless the spirit of Baha'u'llah's love is mirrored in the Baha'i communities.
Ultimately, the power to transform the world is affected by love. Love originating from the relationship with the divine. Love ablaze among members of a community. Love extended without restriction to every human being. This divine love, ignited by the Word of God, is disseminated by enkindled souls through intimate conversations that create new susceptibilities in human hearts, open minds to moral persuasion, and loosen the hold of biased norms and social systems so that they can gradually take on a new form in keeping with the requirements of humanity's age of maturity. You are channels for this divine love. Let it flow through you to all who cross your path. Infuse it into every neighborhood and social space in which you move to build capacity to canalize the social society-building power of Baha'u'llah's revelation. There can be no rest until the destined outcome is achieved.
Tom Price did a good talk about the 12 signs of love. You might hear that. It's really good. You want something to listen to.
I've heard one of his talks on love.
Yeah, so he goes through, like, you know, talks about forgiveness, he talks about patience. So he just 12 of them, and he sort of loops it into, like, you know, the writings, high writings, and what it means. And
How did he get to 12?
Yeah.
How did he get to 12?
How did he get?
Like,
I mean, it was just
it was
a frame for the talk.
Yeah.
Oh, how did he get to? Yeah, I don't know how he get to 12.
I think I've listened to that talk. Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah.
Are we back to the hidden words?
Oh, these things.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen, for compiling these.
Thanks. So we're at number 15. O son of utterance, turn thy face unto mine, and renounce all save me. For my sovereignty endureth, and my dominion perisheth not. If thou seekest another than me, yea, if thou searchest the universe forevermore, thy quest will be in vain.
O Son of Light, forget all save me, and commune with my spirit. This is of the essence of my command. Therefore, turn unto it.
O Son of Man, be thou content with me, and seek no other helper, for none but me can ever suffice thee.
O Son of Spirit, ask not of me that which we desire not for thee. Then be content with what we have ordained for thy sake. For this is that which profiteth thee, if therewith thou dost contend thyself.
O Son of the wondrous vision, I have breathed within thee a breath of my own spirit, that thou mayest be my lover. Why hast thou forsaken me, and sought a beloved other than me?
O Son of Spirit, my claim on thee is great, it cannot be forgotten. My grace to thee is plenteous, it cannot be veiled. My love has made in thee its home, it cannot be concealed. My light is manifest to thee, it cannot be obscured.
O Son of Man, upon the tree of effulgent glory, I have hung for thee the choicest fruits. Wherefore hast thou turned away and contented thyself with that which is less good? Return then unto that which is better for thee in the realm on high.
O Son of Spirit, noble have I created thee, yet thou hast abased thyself. Rise then unto that for which thou wast created.
O Son of the Supreme, to the eternal I call ye, yet thou dost seek that which perisheth. What hath made thee turn away from our desire and seek thine own?
O Son of Man, transgress not thy limits, nor claim that which beseemeth thee not. Prostrate thyself before the countenance of thy God, the Lord of might and power.
So this is a good spot to pause because you'll see there's a shift in topic. One could say that these first couple dozen hidden words are all, except for the second one, which is an exception, important exception about justice and fair-mindedness. The others, I think, are really without exception about the human relationship to the divine, which is both within and both transcendent and immanent at the same time. But as we saw in the quotations, there's that beautiful quotation that said the best way of showing our love for God is to love each other. So that's one of those sort of inevitable overlaps, because how do you love a being that's invisible, that has no possible object point in the world of creation, because it's not part of the world of creation. So to show that love, it has to be reflected in some object in the world. And so our love for others then becomes a manifestation of our love for the divine.
And how often, how many quotes were there where God has breathed within his own spirit, right? So you're actually loving God when you love someone else, because if everyone has that spirit breathed within them, then aren't you just loving the lover and the one that created that? Because he says, I have breathed within thee a breath of my own spirit, that thou mayest be my lover. Then he says, my claim in thee is great, it cannot be forgotten. My grace in thee, to thee is plenteous, it cannot be veiled. My light is manifest to thee. My love has been made in thee, has made in thee its home. Like he, over and over, he's like saying, I created thee. Like I did all of this is in you. So when you're looking at someone else, they receive the same thing you got. Like, to love another person is to see the face of God. That's Les Mis. That's not Baha'u'llah. That's Victor Hugo.
Who's doing the loving and who's being loved in all of these is an interesting sort of question, because when we're loving others, in a way, it's God's loving his own essence. One can kind of transfer all of the these and thous, and it all becomes, at some level, the eternal thou, which is doing all of this, and we're participating in this divine, symphony of love during our mortal lifetimes. But we can think of it as like a cosmic unfolding that's so much bigger than us.
What's funny is I always remember being pregnant in my first trimester, and that chemical hormone of love is like it's like a little chemical love. Like I remember I was feeling like this love for this thing inside of me, and just feeling like just this immense amount of love. I was annoying Perry so much. Like I had to sit next to him for just sit next to him. And he's like, "What is your deal?"
I don't know right now.
But I need to sit here. But I just remember like that shift. I think we get it as mothers when our children say, "I love you." We immediately go, "Oh, I feel so loved," and then "I love you." Like it's like that chemical. I feel like because it's also just it's beyond it's beyond you.
Yeah.
It's not so physical as much as it's like ingrained in us to feel loved and be loved.
So I was a psych major in undergrad, which I got talked out of pursuing. But there was one class I took, I think it was like behavioral neuroscience. It was like about your brain and like behavior, right? And I thought it was fat. First of all, I was terrified I was going to fail, so I sat in the front and I took copious notes. That was the best in that class out of all the other ones. But I will butcher this because it's been a long time and I'm not a scientist. But we were just talking about just basic, like on a very basic level, like the messenger RNA, like it's all like I think I was just up late studying, and I may have been tired, but I remember being like so moved by the fact that like at the very like cellular level, it's all attraction, which is just like love.
Yeah.
It's just all based on love.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like physically also our building blocks.
Yeah.
But then you add like spirit and.
Well, isn't it interesting that for some people, when they learn about all the brain chemistry and everything, to them it's like so all those emotions they're not real, they're just being created somehow by your brain, right? Rather than
Just chemicals.
Exactly, it's just a chemical reaction. It's nothing, right? But on the other hand, when you know that when he said that we were created to know him and to love him, he meant it.
It's actually a material thing too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's in our DNA and RNA.
It's an expression of that statement that I created for that purpose.
Yeah.
And so it's a kind of a mechanism for this spiritual truth.
That's why when somebody brings up that argument, I'm not threatened by it in the least bit. Because I'm like, same thing. We're talking about the same thing. Like you call it RNA, I actually would call it RNA too, but I'm just giving an example. You call it RNA or DNA, I call it the Holy Spirit. You call it Satan, I call it a very difficult time right now with the person. A test, spiritual test. Like you can call it whatever you want to call it. It's manifesting in a similar way.
Yeah.
And however you want to get there, we'll all get there at the end.
Yeah.
there are many paths to God, and they don't all have to use the same language to achieve the same result.
I'm getting this image with all this talk of God and love and wombs and birthings. Just thinking, usually I think of God as singular, alone, incomparable. I mean, but we've been talking about wombs. What about the womb within God, where, and this kind of is a little bit Trinitarian, where within God's womb is the true Son, the sons that emerge, is the Spirit, the Holy Spirit. And as they become discrete, then they are birthed, out of God's womb. But it helps me think that God's heart is a community, not isolated, not separate, not alone. Anyway.
Or at least the God we have access to.
Yeah. On this whole question of who's doing the loving and who's the object and recipient of the love, and it all kind of transforms in mystical ways. Maya, so our youngest daughter went to chapel this morning because they have chapel every week at her school, and the chaplain gave a little talk about love, and she said the theme of this year is going to be the glow within, that divine light within. Very nice. And she told this lovely story of when she was in college in Montana and far away from home, feeling a little homesick, and she and a friend would go after dark and they would just drive around the neighborhood in this town in Montana and just look at all the houses that were lit from within. And they got kind of a little bit of a sense of it resolved their homesickness a little bit. It made them feel a little bit connected, seeing all of these homes that had these lights shining within.
Wow.
And she said that's the way we all are. Is that we all should be, because we never know in the people we encounter, if we have that light shining within, how much it means to others if we have the lights on. And we think, well, my love for God, this is just between me and God. You don't know who's out there observing it, who's just doing a drive-by, and who's like getting some of the radiance from that. Because it's like light that's just bouncing all around, between hearts and and the one source.
That's right.
But
Keep your lights on.
So
Keep your lights on.
Writing it down.
keep the lights on.
It's not a soccer story. It's actually.
It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful.
And which is why I think a lot of times people really do sort of downplay one's actions and the way one's countenance as being just as important as any activity you may or may not do, something you may not directly, because it really can impact people. That rippling effect is more powerful I think than people think. Certainly if you don't have it and you do all the other things, people will know. People will know you don't have it.
I left this quote out, but there's another quote by Abdullah where he says, if I love you, I don't need to say any words, you'll know. And likewise, if I don't love you, I could tell you in 1,000 words that I love you, but it won't have any meaning. And it's something beyond the words.
That's what I said. Can you just mansplain? I don't know. Is that a definition of mansplaining? Philosophy way of saying it.
Could I ask your reaction to this? Because this is a little bit of sort of sticks with me in a way that I don't understand exactly. I think I do at one level, but it's puzzling. And the second, love the under number 5. Love the creatures for the sake of God and not for themselves. You will never become angry or impatient, etc., etc. But I mean, it almost is like the people in your life that you love are a means to an end. They're a bridge for you to get closer to God, and sort of at the end of the day, the hell with them. Kind of. I know it's not really what he means, but it's just.
Oh, that's the way you took it.
It hit me that way.
Okay, no, it totally hit me absolutely differently. But I can see how you could. I can see how that could be. To me, it was like no matter. I can see that. To me, it was like the cool thing is like if you have this relationship to God, you can almost endure anybody's behavior because you know this. Okay, this is for God. All right, you know, they didn't take all of their meds today. For you, God, I'll ride this through. I'll be patient or whatever, because that will be ultimately what will push you through that difficult time.
I saw it's like if you're conditioning your love on the person themselves, then you're always gonna end up disappointed.
We get that.
And it's not unconditional. It's God's love is unconditional.
Condition it on.
But to your point,
But it's for the sake of.
For the
I
sake
don't
of.
know exactly what that means.
could be a translation thing.
Yeah, I wonder if that's what it is.
It's universal peace.
Yeah. Did he write that in English? No.
Not
This is one we probably don't have a Persian text for.
Because it came from a talk.
It came from a talk,
Yeah.
and for most of the talks in this volume, we only have the translations, which have been modified and edited. So it's possible that the translation is an issue.
But it's that part that kind of sticks with you.
Yeah, I mean,
For
I
the
guess
sake
when
of
I see
God.
the rest of it, I see what you were just saying, Catherine. All of the rest of it is, it's like there's a healing and uplifting in the way you engage another human when you realize that human is derives his or her dignity and beauty from being God's creature. And in that sense, for the sake of God and not for themselves, is to kind of acknowledge that the createdness aspect of who they are is not really the place to sort of park your love. I mean, I think that's what maybe this is about. I mean, that just for the sake of is an odd phrase. But it's just a little bit paradoxical to me that on the one hand, the human is so precious, but on the other hand, it's a means to seeing the God, I guess, that is in that person and in yourself. But when he explores it later, it's about being angry or impatient and all of these things, and the imperfection of humanity. So I guess the deeper sense, if I don't get hung up on that phrase "for the sake of," which really does feel like a means ends kind of thing. If I let go of that, then it's like maybe it's just the nature of God as all in all, and it's only if you realize that this person is not any less than you or any less than anyone else, but they are less than God.
Yeah.
Well, we get into this whole question of identity in Hidden Word number 30. He says, "Deny not my servant should he ask anything from me, for his face is my face, be then abashed before me." So when he says love people for the sake of God, you can read it as, don't love them for who they are in themselves, love them for this other ulterior motive.
Yeah.
But then in Hidden Word number 30, he's like, your relationship with that person is as though that person were God himself speaking to you, or God himself, facing you. And so where do you locate God in the relationship? Is God the third party to a relationship between you and I that's somehow making it other than a pure relationship? Or is God both the cause and the effect, the alpha and the omega of the relationship? How do we look at where God is located in all of this?
So I guess what I'm taking from what you're saying, it's a little bit like the purity of heart in your way of engaging that person is ultimately the key. Because if for some reason you're wanting to see them as something other than God, then you're off.
But isn't it also true that by loving somebody else, you are seeing God? So if we are all
Yeah.
created by God, we essentially, if we love people as God loves us, we are essentially seeing God within other people,
Right.
right? Because we're reflecting the mirror. You are reflecting the mirror. By loving you, I am just seeing you for what you are, which is a reflection of the same source.
Right. So when he's talking about, just be careful about being impatient
Yeah.
with the imperfections of other people, that really it's a distraction. It's a veil. I love those two things that are always helpful for me to realize how far I need to go. Veils and vain imaginings. At some level, if you look at a person and you need that person to really be a good person right now,
I think
and I have a vain imagining, I'm wanting them to be God, and they're
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, I know. I totally get it.
Yeah.
I think one thing my therapist, I had a really good therapist, and she would always say, whenever we get super annoyed with somebody or something or some situation, she'd be like, what are the similarities between you and them? I'm like, I don't like this. Right? But she'd always say that because the reason she would do that was to get me out of my mind to consider the fact that maybe I'm annoyed by something that they do that I also do. Or also to make myself less about my ego being the important person and more about like the commonality between the two of us. So there's a lot of ways of getting through to my heart, which was by making me not look at myself as better than them in any way, but more like looking at the fact that maybe we're carrying the same similarities. So like an example would be like if I was mad at somebody and I'd be like, well, they have a dedication to whatever it is that they're holding on to.
Right,
And I also have some similar values where I will not like allow someone to like, get into my space or like, so I would start looking at that and like, all right, we have a lot of similarities here. I may not agree with them, but I no longer see them as a threat. And I can start seeing their perspective versus it wasn't personal. It wasn't them attacking me.
Well, you're less likely to get angry and impatient.
And you're less likely to get angry and impatient because it's not personal. It wasn't a personal attack on me. It was their own values that they were projecting or they were holding on to.
Did she take this course?
No, she's from
She
New
basically
Jersey though.
told you to
She's from New Jersey. She was an Italian lady who had the same Catholic background as I did.
There we go.
And we meshed so
There's
well.
like, and I wonder if you replaced God with "for your mother's sake," right? For your mother's sake. How many times has somebody said, "Look, this is for your mother's sake," like a child's acting out and a child's doing something, and then somebody comes and said, "Look, please, just for your mother. I need you to just." Right? And then because they love their mother so much and they really want mom to be happy and not to be upset, they de-escalate the situation and kind of course correct.
Mom loves them.
And then, right? And then the whole situation is just a little more even
Yeah.
because the child was able to tap into something a little bit bigger than that moment. So, like, I think it's a similar type of thing.
Yeah.
Like when somebody's really, like you said, humans are precious, but humans are humans. And like the person who can sometimes take the offense or be frustrated by the moment might be able to tap into something else that will help.
Yeah.
Like, don't the writings talk about, the Baha'i writings talk about like you shouldn't view people through your own eye, but through God's eye.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you should
Yeah.
look at it through a different lens, and like you can look at God as like a bundle. You can describe God as like a bundle of virtues, right? God has all the virtues. And so when someone lacks a virtue, it doesn't mean, it just means that, like, I don't want to say it, but like, if someone, what's someone put it like, if you look at the stars, right, you don't like recognize like the blackness around the stars. You recognize like the star itself, right? You focus on that star. And so if you look at, so if you try to like look at someone and then you try to focus on like what good quality do they have, like if you focus on those good qualities, if you keep doing that and you practice that, then it's going to be hard for you to not see good qualities in people.
The
And
teeth
so,
of the dog.
and so someone, yes, Jesus with the teeth and the dog, and like, and then one of the analogies was saying like, when you go to test drive a car, and you never noticed this car before, but then afterwards you notice that car all the time on the road.
Right. Right.
Something's just that one, just focusing on that car now makes you be aware of it all the time. So when you start to focus more on positive attributes,
Yeah.
you don't even like see, it becomes like second nature almost.
Yeah.
You don't even see the bad attributes in them.
That's what I think prayers are doing.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
prayers are heightening your awareness and your focus.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a brain thing.
Yeah. There was one story that Adib Tarzan said that there was a teacher, and she was really good at looking at just the positiveness in a child. And there was a child in her class that was very none of the teachers really wanted him. He was very like hard to like manage, and he had like a lot of like negative attributes in that regard. And she took it upon herself. She prayed about it. She said, "I must find one attribute. I must find one nice quality about this child."
This is your therapist?
The teacher.
Teacher.
She said, "I must find one good quality about this child." Like she was like, it was one of her goals. So one day she was just observing him, and he had good posture. And she said, "Oh, he has really good posture." So she said in front of the group, she said, "Everyone needs to start sitting more or have more posture, like whatever the kid's name was." And she said the minute she did that, it changed him. Because up until that point, he's only heard negative things and negative qualities about himself. But to be put in a situation where other people are looking at a value or an attribute that he has, she said it immediately changed who he was. It immediately
I didn't know someone had written an article on me.
That's
so awesome.
You're so humble. That attribute over there. Teacher. I know. Which one are you, a child?
Does my posture look like I'm a child?
Addie Tarzan actually said God has all the attributes except for one, and it's the one he craves the most, which is humble. God himself cannot be humble.
Oh, that's cool. Adib's the therapist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except through kenosis, right?
Well, that's
Yeah,
right.
it's self-emptying.
By emptying himself into the world, into the persona of the.
So he took on humility,
Taking
even
on
though
humility.
it was not his nature. Well, thank you all very much. I didn't mean to get us off track.
No,
It's not off track.
Really,
That is the track, my brother.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when we communicate based on experiential,
Yeah.
our experiences, that becomes our stories.
Yeah.
And we're so much less judgmental when we're listening to each other's stories
Right.
than when we're sort of talking in concepts or ideas or cognition, because it's so easy to judge and argue.
And to break things up into pieces rather than see the humanity.
Yeah,
That's right.
I just heard something today about how the origins of community organizing was to get a lot of people together, and the numbers, it was important to have numbers, and then have everyone listen to each other's stories, because you listen to enough stories around you and you start seeing all these convergences and how we actually do belong to each other, because there's so many things that you can identify.
Person X thought he had a particular crisis because he couldn't get health care. All of a sudden he realized that everybody's got that problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's kind of the community organizing.
Yeah.
I wanted to say one last thing, that just connecting what we were just talking about with our conversation in the dining room a little bit earlier. I was talking about, of course, I'm thinking about what I was talking about. The Darwinian approach to, you survive as a species by scanning your environment for danger. And so fear is a useful feature of your inner life. But what I think we're talking about here is we do have this natural inclination when we look at a person who has a flaw to step back and consider that that flaw may be a potential danger to me. That's the physical part of how I connect with that human. But what we're talking about here, what we're being taught here, is spiritualizing ourselves past that. So if you can actually see the beauty, something, posture, whatever it may be, that all of a sudden your way of connecting to this being is past the issue of survival and Darwinian self-regard and all of that stuff. And then, you see all these extraordinary stories. I'm reading that Balyushi book about Abdu'l-Baha and all these martyrs. I mean, just the notion of martyrdom, that there comes this point where the beauty of the other person, and certainly of God and of the cause and of the need to build God's kingdom on earth, is so compelling that it's almost like anti-Darwinian. It's like, I don't care if I survive, because the survival is not ultimately about this thing I'm obsessed with as a natural creature, which is my physical life. It's okay. I can actually let that go.
Yeah.
So it's all this incredible journey of spiritualizing the brute in here, and somehow also seeing the beauty of the brute.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is that the brain, it's been maladaptive over time because you are scanning for something of physical danger. And literally your adrenaline and your cortisol start heightening so that you can know, do I fight or flight? And you probably had to be flight, right? Like that was a good chance. And so like that over time hasn't changed. So now you're scanning a room. The frown is now the saber-toothed tiger. The person, and there's a time for that. There's a time for that. Like if you're single woman in a bar and that frown comes on, that fear could save your life, right? But but there's so many situations now where we have to learn to adjust and that this maladaptive feature that we have, so that and be more like accurate and acute with our definition of what's to be fearful. And that's part of it is like the beauty of the brain is that this is what our brains were trained. Our brains are doing what they're supposed to do. Our brains are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. But they've also been evolved to do other things, and we just need to let those hormones be able to come through more readily. Sorry we can't get you all pregnant, but maybe it'll happen for you one day.
The one key to getting yourself off of that cortisol rush, that fight or flight, is just to breathe. If you take it, because your brain stops, so the oxygen level has to come down so you can run fast. So that's why most of us aren't logical. So if you feel yourself in a fight or flight mode, you gotta stop, breathe, and then your brain's like, oh, we're okay.
No, it's a literal heart. The heart literally is slowed down to the point where you can think.
And the oxygen level
You're
comes
absolutely correct. It's a great book.
I've had enough panic attacks to know exactly what I'm supposed to do. So it's really interesting that your body just takes over.
So funny how in all spiritual practices, you're supposed to meditate, right?
And breathe,
And then breathing could be like that, chanting or breathing or anything that has a repetition puts you in a different space. If you do it with the slowness that might help.
Because it engages the parasympathetic nervous system. So I always practice that when I'm in the doctor's office, they have the cuff on me and I'm trying to bring my blood pressure.
I'm going to pass this time.
The same thing can be true for a lie detector test. If you believe it's true and you calm yourself down, just saying. Jerry Seinfeld.
I've done it so many times.
Well, sometimes when I wake up in the morning, it's my goal, and I unfortunately It's uncommon for me to achieve it, but I can just lie there in bed for a moment before I get up, and I can thank God for giving me a new day, and I feel my breath. I can feel I had some congestion in my head, and I could literally feel my heartbeat in my ear.
Wow.
And I'm feeling like, blood is flowing through me, air is flowing through me. That is what is keeping me alive. And I can just put the love of God into that. That blood flowing through me is the love of God I would like to have flowing through me for the rest of my day.
Oh.
The same thing with my breathing,
Beautiful.
So it becomes a kind of a spiritual exercise. But I'm reminded of that by your comments about how the natural part of who we are is really this wonderful platform for being present to God.
Yeah,
Brain is doing what it wants.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
maybe once a month I'll pull that off.
Stop reading. Get the kids.
So shall we go a few more hidden words in?
Yeah.
And before
We
we
left off on
conclude?
24.
25.
We didn't read 25 though, right?
We haven't read 25.
That's right, we're up to it. Yeah.
Oh, we don't want to skip this one.
Who read last? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
Uh,
Jasmine, you can pick her up, so I'll be back.
Okay, good night.
Good night, guys. See you.
Good night. Thank you.
I'll read. O son of spirit, vaunt not thyself over the poor, for I lead him on his way, and behold thee in thy evil plight to confound thee forevermore.
O son of being, how canst thou forget thine own faults, and busy thyself with the faults of others? Whoso doeth this is accursed of me.
O Son of Man, breathe not the sins of others, so long as thou art thyself a sinner. Shouldst thou transgress this command, accursed wouldst thou be, and to this I bear witness.
O Son of Spirit, know thou of a truth, he that biddeth men be just, and himself committeth iniquity, is not of me, even though he bear my name.
O son of being, ascribe not to any soul that which thou wouldst not have ascribed to thee, and say not that which thou doest not. This is my command unto thee. Do thou observe it.
What's a scribe?
To attribute.
Oh. What?
Attribute.
To attribute.
Attribute not to any soul for that which thou have attributed to thee. I'm not getting it at all.
Would not have ascribed to thee.
I don't know why I'm not getting this one at all.
But don't label, you could use the label, right?
Well,
Yeah,
yes,
don't
right,
label people.
It is writing, right? So don't like write something for someone else that you wouldn't want written for yourself. That kind of
Backbiting?
could be that.
Or to ascribe something to someone would be like to stick a sticky note on them saying this person is X.
Yes.
So it's like, don't do that to
That's
anyone if you don't want that sticky note on yourself.
I love how you dumbed it down to sticking up for me. Why that one stuck? I have no idea.
It's stuck.
I don't feel good about it. Moving on.
It's sort of the negative of do unto others as you would have them
Yeah,
do.
Right. Or
My
don't
brain
don't
was
do
like,
right.
prescribe.
Say don't do to others what you wouldn't want them to do.
It's another
Exactly,
golden
yeah.
rule. Yeah.
Sorry. Moving on.
23rd. O son of man, deny not my servant, should he ask anything from thee. For his face is my face, be then abashed for me.
O son of being, bring thyself to account each day, ere thou art summoned to a reckoning. For death, herald, shall come upon thee, and thou shalt be called to give account for thy deeds. Judgment Day.
O Son of the Supreme, I have made death a messenger of joy to thee, wherefore dost thou grieve? I made the light to shed on thee its splendor. Why dost thou veil thyself therefrom?
O Son of Spirit, with the joyful tidings of light I hail thee. Rejoice. To the court of holiness I summon thee. Abide therein, that thou mayest live in peace forevermore.
O Son of Spirit, the Spirit of holiness beareth unto thee the joyful tidings of reunion. Wherefore dost thou grieve? The Spirit of power confirmeth thee in his cause. Why dost thou veil thyself? The light of his countenance doth lead thee. How canst thou go astray?
O Son of Man, sorrow not, save that thou art far from us. Rejoice not, save that thou art drawing near and returning unto us.
O Son of Man, rejoice in the gladness of thine heart, that thou mayest be worthy to meet me and to mirror forth my beauty.
O Son of Man, divest not thyself of my beauty, how do you pronounce that? Beauteous, sorry, robe. And forfeit not thy portion of my wondrous fountain, that thou shouldest thirst forevermore.
O Son of Being, walk in my statutes for love of me, and deny thyself that which thou desirest, if thou seekest my pleasure.
O Son of Man, neglect not my commandments, if thou lovest my beauty, and forget not my counsels, if thou wouldst attain my good pleasure.
O Son of Man, wert thou to speed through the immensity of space, and traverse the expanse of heaven, yet thou wouldst find no rest, save in submission to our command and humbleness before our face.
O Son of Man, magnify my cause, that I may reveal unto thee the mysteries of my greatness, and shine upon thee with the light of eternity.
O Son of Man, humble thyself before me, that I may graciously visit thee. Arise for the triumph of my cause, that while yet on earth thou mayest obtain the victory.
O Son of Being, make mention of me on my earth, that in my heaven I may remember thee. Thus shall mine eyes and thine be solaced.
O Son of the Throne, thy hearing is my hearing. Hear thou therewith, the sight is my sight. Do thou see therewith, that in thy inmost soul thou mayest testify unto my exalted sanctity, and I within myself may bear witness unto an exalted station for thee.
I seem to remember having run across this recently. Meister Eckhart, one of the great exponents of Christian mysticism, said something like, the eye with which I behold God is the same eye with which God beholds me.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it
Something
does.
like that
Yeah.
has gone around. So
Yeah.
That's like a really old
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
O Son of Being, seek a martyr's death in my path. There you go.
Hmm.
Content, well, because he's reading about martyrs.
Hmm.
Content with my pleasure and thankful for that which I ordain. That thou mayest repose with me beneath the canopy of majesty behind the tabernacle of glory.
O Son of Man, ponder and reflect. Is it thy wish to die upon thy bed, or to shed thy lifeblood on the dust, a martyr in my path, and so become the manifestation of my command, and the revealer of my light in the highest paradise? Judge thou aright, O servant.
O Son of Man, by my beauty, to tinge thy hair with thy blood is greater in my sight than the creation of the universe and the light of both worlds. Strive then to attain this, O servant.
O Son of Man, for everything there is a sign. The sign of love is fortitude under my decree, and patience under my trials.
O O Son of Man, the true lover yearneth for tribulation, even as doth the rebel for forgiveness, and the sinful for mercy.
O Son of Man, if adversity befall thee not in my path, how canst thou walk in the ways of them that are content with my pleasure? If trials afflict thee not in thy longing to meet me, how wilt thou attain the light in thy love for my beauty?
O Son of Man, my calamity is my providence. Outwardly it is fire and vengeance, but inwardly it is light and mercy. Hasten thereunto, that thou mayest become an eternal light and immortal spirit. This is my command unto thee, do thou observe it.
So, just throwing a question out there. Should we be looking for problems in life? Should we go and look for difficulties? Is that? I mean, because
Why bother?
Yeah, the theme of this world is what? Tests, because without tests we cannot, what is it, gold?
Yeah.
Test the gold.
Fire we test the gold, with gold we test our servants. I mean,
But
should
there's
that be?
a difference between tests that we create for ourselves and
Yeah.
actual tests that
That's a
lend
good point.
to our growth.
But is there a difference? I mean,
There is a difference
these-
actually, because you know that there is like an entire sect of Catholicism where these these monks will like hurt themselves physically,
Self-flagellation.
and it's
Yeah.
it's a self. They feel like this is what they're supposed to do on this earth to feel the blessedness because of the test. But I don't think that that's at all what God is asking of us. I think what He's asking of us is to go through the fire versus going around the fire. Oh God, I'm just quoting the sermon that I watched at the church. Anyways, the lady was like, go through the fire. So anyways, forget it. So then, that basically, like, I feel like God is saying that, like, do not fear the tribulations and the tests that will come as a result of going through it. Do not avoid it, because you will. I think the other parts of the Hidden Words often said that we will continue to keep that test until we've gone through it. But I think it's kind of like this whole concept, like, don't be fearful of your life. Don't be fearful of being a martyr. Don't be fearful of all these things, because if by going through it, you will then have the blessedness, the providence or the divine. You know, I feel like that's what I'm getting from it.
So if I'm on a hike and I'm getting from point A to point B and there's like two paths, should I just, as a matter of principle, pick the path that's steeper and harder to take, or should I take the path that's right. gentler and easier?
Predestination will tell you that whatever path you take, it was meant to be.
Who was the philosopher that said, when you come to a path, take it. When you come to a fork, take it.
I love that.
Don't question it.
I don't know, but I love that. I feel like that's not the point. I think that you can be a true lover. You can yearn for tribulation without looking for your own. Otherwise, I would definitely would handpick certain tests. Right? Just be like, oh,
Yeah, we all
Right.
want
This is the test that
we
I
all
can-
want the cushion. We all
Right.
want the path of least resistance. We all want it.
I mean, if I tweak it a little bit and say the general rule should be, when I come to life decisions, I should pick the ones that are like most challenging to me, because through that I'll grow the most. That makes sense to me. But that's a slight tweak from the idea of like
But in
tribulation.
humanity,
I
are we?
wouldn't-
But I guess from my point of view, do I ever get a choice? Like, do I ever get a choice as to what tests I'm going and difficulties I'm going through? Because I don't feel like I ever get a choice. I feel like I have to go through it,
Uh-huh.
because the only way to go through it is through it. And it's like, I never feel like I never see the path that's better. I just, we are in this world of tests and trials. And so wherever, even if I go down a happy path, I'll eventually hit a test and trial.
Yeah.
Or another way of looking at it, Stephen, is to say, look, this is not about you.
Yeah.
Whether you go this path or that path. What is the cause of God calling you to do right now? And let that determine which path you take.
Mm-hmm.
What I find kind of interesting about this is like, this strikes me as kind of the Baha'i answer to the theodicy question. You know,
Mm.
the theodicy question in philosophy, I'm sure you know, study this stuff, but
I know,
Yeah.
face.
I can't see you're not missing much. It's you know, this classic philosophical problem is, how can there be a God when there is so much suffering in the world?
Yeah.
Shouldn't God, you know, do something about
Yeah.
all of these children that are dying in Gaza? Shouldn't God do something about all the people who were killed by the, you know,
How can you love a
volcano
God
in
that does this to
Pompeii, you
people?
know,
Yeah.
whatever? And so it becomes an argument against the existence of God, ultimately, is that God is not a good God, and therefore, since God is defined as the ultimate good being, I don't want that God for my life. And there are a lot of people who jump into atheism around that conundrum. But what I hear happening here is that it's this persistent notion behind that is that whether I live or die, whether I suffer or not, or whether any other human lives or dies in a given circumstance, or suffers or not, is something that God is responsible for making sure it doesn't happen. That's a presumption about the nature of the goodness of God that is embedded in that theodicy dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say that God is all powerful, and this is what is so, you know, intolerable to an atheist, that God is in his power, can actually be present in the face of, doesn't mean he's willing it in the sense of like a human wills an act, but he's standing by as horrible things happen. You think of the Holocaust or whatever. That's not on God in the sense of God willing a harm. It's God is creating the universe through his permitting the agencies of human beings, or the phenomenon of a natural volcano or whatever it is, earthquake that kills somebody from a natural cause. That is the law of God. And because death and suffering are not the ultimate dispositive determinant of whether or not God is good, then you can't deny God, because life is filled with adversity. So all of these things about adversity are about, because I believe that God is God and I am not, if adversity comes my way as I pursue the cause of God in the world, I have to be grateful for it. And that gratitude piece is all over these writings. Right? And then you say, well, how can you be grateful for something that makes you feel utterly miserable or takes your life away? The answer is that the other thing that's happening, as that happens, provided I accept it with gratitude, is giving me a new life. It's strengthening my being. It's spiritualizing me further. So anyway, I just find that really an interesting answer to the theodicy problem.
One way out of the theodicy problem also is to say that structurally light has no meaning unless it's contrasted with darkness. So ease has no meaning unless it's contrasted with adversity. And so there's an interplay of these, you know, of the positive, of the yin and the yang, and you know, and sort of questioning why is there suffering, why is there adversity, is like saying, you know, is pulling out a pillar of existence in a way. The Baha'i writings make a great deal about the relationship, the intimate relationship between the two, in a play on two words in the Arabic, nar and nur, which is fire and light. And nar and nur differ only by this medial vowel at the center, you know, the A versus the U. And actually the letter A is this upright letter, like a person standing up, and nur is like someone prostrating. And so whether that has anything to do with it. That a lot has been made out of the symbolic significance of the shape of the letter, you know, and how when light, you know, when fire is converted into light, when nar becomes nur, you know, that's a sort of a movement of creation. But the two has something that's like adversity and its its opposite in the world, and they're closely related. They're, you know, etymologically related almost. And
well, I know there's one of the prayers in the prayer books that in the prayer book that speaks of God as the one who separates fire from light.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, that's going to be Nar and Nur. That's going to be those two closely related words.
And it's such it's such a mind blowing thing to separating fire from light.
And don't the Baha'i teachings say that like God doesn't want every human being to suffer? That's not God's object, is to make human beings suffer. And that's why, like, self-flagellation and, you know, whipping yourself in your monastic cell is no longer prescribed.
Yeah.
And probably it was neurotic anyway.
I doubt God ever said do that.
Yeah. But there is suffering. I mean, suffering happens because love happens.
Yeah.
And because of love, we experience loss
Right.
if we lose the object of our love.
Yeah.
So it seems like that's really different than saying God, like, wills suffering upon human beings.
Yeah, it's structurally there. In the second valley, in the seven valleys, Baha'u'llah talks about the valley of love, which you think which ought to be this wonderful thing. Baha'u'llah says the steed of this valley is pain. So, and if there be no pain, this valley can't be traversed. The only way to get across the valley of love is by experiencing the pain of love. And
Well, and a Catholic priest would often say at marriage ceremonies, the cup of joy is the cup of sorrow. It's the same.
Same thing.
It's
Khalil Gibran riffs on that beautifully in a chapter of the Prophet called Joy and Sorrow. And he talks about how they're like joy and sorrow are like scales. You know, when one is lifted, the other drops, and vice versa. You know, the two are joined together as part of the structure of things.
I always think about that you know, this world has this calamities and its trials because we have free will. So like, you know, the whole concept of like having that free will. I have that free will. She has that free will. Everyone has that free will. And so, you know, I am not special. That's what I remember learning from Christianity. Is like I am not special from that regard. So like, yeah, I'm going to live in a world where I believe in the same God as everyone else believes in. However, I'm not special. You also have free choice. And so you choose to do with that free choice, which you do. It may affect me negatively. It may affect my world. But it's also that we all have this choice. That's something that I always remember learning about that in Christianity class, which when I was doing my youth ministry, was one of the concepts we always have to talk about, which is that with free choice comes trials and tribulations, because we are all learning what our free choice does to each other and to ourselves.
You know, this is really illuminating about a problem that I struggle with throughout my life as a Christian, as I'm remembering this incident where Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane the day before he dies. And he says, Father, let this cup pass from me. Not my will, but thine be done. And I used to think to myself, he was saying, God, it's going to really suck tomorrow. Kill.
He's literally saying that.
He's
literally saying that.
Would you let me get out of this? And then what I realized is that maybe that's not at all what was going on in him. Maybe what was going on was that, you know, I can deal with this sacrifice. I can be a martyr. But just 3 years to do this work?
Yeah.
But why?
Yeah.
What was
Just 3 years to do
Yeah,
this work
'cause he
for
died when
you
he
in
was
this
30.
world?
Yeah.
Mm.
I
So
always-
the point of adversity again
Yeah.
is not about you and your
Yeah.
own personal journey. It's about the cause of God and advancing God's will for the world. I mean, I do kind of think, thank heavens, but Baha'u'llah died at 72,
He
right?
died of natural causes.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
Jesus is a
Another
young
way-
man, and he's
But another way to think about it is also, and this is what we learned in Bible school, was that it's not necessarily the example that he was being a human being and having that fear. It's more or less like it was being watched, how he accepted it, how like, the whole point of it was to be written down, that this is this how to approach a test or a trial is to be like Christ. Christ had an
Your will, not
opportunity because
mine.
he's a manifestation to request to be omitted from this. Again, though, right before he dies, he sees the prophets, Moses. Remember, I think he took Paul with him. I forget the exact disciples he took with him to the mountain right before Judas
Peter.
kisses him.
Peter.
Yeah, and they fell asleep. But right before they fell asleep, they saw Jesus Christ talking to
Moses, and
Moses, the
Elijah.
other prophets, and they were consoling him and greeting him before he died. That was another image that he wanted them to see, to write down, so that we could view it later.
Wow.
Because there was a few things that he did right before he died. It was like even with Judas kissed him, remember? And I forget exactly what he said to him. He said, "Do you kiss me, Judas?" I forget the exact words he says to him, but it was more like, I know what you're doing. And he still gave Judas an opportunity to not do it.
Yeah.
And he was still at the table at the Last Supper.
Exactly.
He wasn't ostracized.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, we gotta go.
All
I
right,
think it's
till
a
next
more
time.
distinction.
Oh.
If you're aligning your will with what you think, like your will, the will of God to the best of your ability, then the trials and tribulations get underway.
It's
Yeah.
completely transformed.
Yeah, but if you're just like, if you're pursuing your own desires,
Yeah.
earthly desires, then yeah, go ahead and take that steep route, right? If you're like, I'm gonna get super muscly, you may fall and break a leg or something. I don't know, but I feel like there's a difference there, right? And I guess that's ultimately it. Is are you aligning your will with the will of God, and then what